We got a Hall of Famer with us. It is Mike Irwin from Pig Trail Nation joining us every Monday on Halftime. Mike, good morning and happy December 1st and happy day one of the Ryan Silverfield era.
Well, thanks. Guys, that was one of the first things I heard yesterday afternoon after he landed here, went over to the Broyle Center, started working over there. The first thing he did was go over and talk to Cal. And I'm sure they knew each other before because Cal knows people over in Memphis, knows the staff. I'm sure there's people there from when he was there. So they talked, and I think that helped at least convince, hey, if Cal likes him, maybe he's not so bad. But then one of the first things I heard was that he was going to go over back to the athletic football complex, get on the phone, and start calling all of those in-state guys, 4-stars that had gone out of state, that had committed out of state. So he's already gotten one of them, and I'm told that he's going to try to get more. And again, it's because I'm told that unlike Sam Pittman, he does think it's really, really important to go after in-state guys. If you can get an in-state guy, go after him. I think Pittman's attitude was, if I lose a 4-star in-state, I'll just go get a 4-star out of state.
And for those who are wondering, Beal had been committed to Oklahoma State, but decommitted, it looks like 6 weeks ago, middle of October. So he'd been, shopping himself around a little bit. And who knows if he would have signed at Arkansas, whether it would have been Silverfield or whomever. But that's just that's one really great thing to see here. Mike, why are we doing a press conference on Thursday? I thought maybe that might happen today, but maybe you got to recruit first and foremost. Is that why?
I think some of it may have to do with your Check's commitment to this college football. I mean, doesn't he have some meetings coming up more with the playoff committee again?
Oh yeah, they got another release tomorrow. That's right.
Yeah, and they've also got a basketball game coming up on Thursday. Now, I was told last week that there would be a press conference on Thursday, but the person who told me thought it was going to be in Bud Walton Arena because that person said, I know the guy that sets up the stage there, and he was told, be prepared to set up a stage for Thursday. And I said, wait a minute. They don't traditionally introduce football coaches at Bud Walton. It's usually somewhere else. For instance, Sam Pittman, it was in the indoor. It was in the baseball indoor for Morris. And I said, that doesn't sound likely. Well, now we know it's going to be. They're going to have a press conference on Thursday morning with the media. And then that afternoon, I think it's 1 o'clock, somewhere like that, they're going to have this, I don't know, they call it celebration or whatever they're calling it. And that's going to be in the football indoor, just like with Pittman. Well, what you do there is you set up 300 or 400 folding chairs. It's a smaller crowd of people, and you can control who's in there. I promise you, they're not going to invite people in there that they think would sit there and protest or boo. So I think it's pretty smart on their part to do it that way. I don't think it would have been good just to open up Bud Walton and let anybody come in there because there might have been some people up in the, up high yelling or whatever. We know there was a protest. It wasn't a big protest, 15, 20 kids out there. But it's significant, guys, only in that the 50 years I've covered this program, I've never seen an actual protest of a hire. And supposedly those kids that were out there claimed there were a lot more people online that they were contacting and were behind them. So, look, there's some pushback on him, but, there's some pushback on Summerall at Florida. I was reading some of that stuff where they're getting on social media and saying, get out of here. We don't want you. Go home. Go back where you came from. This is just a new time, a new day, a new age. If you don't hire the coach we want, we're going to let you know that we don't like it.
Hey, Mike, the rock star of the group, Lane Kiffin, that's not going to coach in the playoffs for Ole Miss, going to LSU. Surprised that he's not going to coach the playoffs for Ole Miss, or not surprised? And then what constitutes it a success? Does he have to win a national title for this to be a successful hire for LSU?
Yeah, he's put himself in he doesn't have much room for error at LSU. They went after him, but they expect him to do big things. We'll see if he can do it. I'm not surprised that he's not coaching because I figured that at LSU or at Ole Miss they wouldn't let him do it. There's just no history of that. Most of the time, they're not going to let you stick around with something that important and coach guys that you're going to turn around and try to bring them take him to another team after that or whatever. So it was really interesting the way that happened. When LSU arrived on that jet to fly him out of there were a bunch of members of his staff that didn't get on the plane, and he had said, this is your last chance to be on our staff at LSU. If you're not on that plane when we take off, you're not getting on the staff. And there were some that stayed, and there were fans that showed up out there and screamed stuff at him, screamed at least the offensive coordinator got out and got on. They yelled at him, and this is sort of stuff you would expect. People said that he didn't owe them anything. Let me just explain to everybody that he didn't turn that program around immediately at Ole Miss. He had some missteps, but they backed him up. They had one of the best fan collectives in the country. It wasn't just the boosters who backed him up. The average everyday fan backed him up. They got him better facilities. They improved them. And so they put a lot into him, and then he's just basically saying, well, okay, I won big here, now bye. And I don't think you can expect them to be happy about that.
It's instant damage to your reputation for the remainder of your career unless you turn into a legend. That's what would have happened with Saban had he not.
He'd have stayed at LSU and won 4 titles. They'd have put a statue of him up in Baton Rouge.
But if he hadn't gone to Alabama and win all those championships, and with the way he left Miami, I'm not going to be the Alabama coach, that's the way you would have remembered him. Not anything. Sure. You would have won the national title at LSU, absolutely, but it would have been the way you leave the previous place. And it's not, he wasn't set up to win Super Bowls or anything there, but the thing at Ole Miss right now is they are in a position they've never been in before. And Kiffin forever now, it's not just he's remembered for this. This is a track record everywhere he's gone, I guess, except for FAU, because that was understood as a stepping stone. The marriage always ends terribly. I mean, in a court battle, kind of.
Yeah. And look, guys, I will point out that this school in multiple sports has a history of bringing in guys, and when they're successful, they don't leave. Nolan didn't leave. John McDonald didn't leave. Frank didn't leave. You could sit here, Norm DeBryan didn't leave, Dave Van Horn didn't leave, Lance Harder didn't leave. You can name all these guys. Musselman's one of the few. So whatever it is about living up here and coaching in that environment over there tends to put coaches in a position where when they succeed, they don't use it as a stepping stone. I also think you need to, and I'm not trying to push this guy, I'm just going to cover him even Steven. That's my job. But I will say this about Silverfield. He's the only one that agreed to come here. None of the rest of them did. The only one that might have come that they didn't offer to was Kane Womack. And I think that would have been a good hire. But all of these guys, Golich and these guys, they turned him down. So he wanted to be here. And I looked at something. Do you know what their winning percentage is since Petrino had that motorcycle accident in the SEC? 22%. They've had 4 0-win seasons in the conference since then, and 2 more 1-win seasons. This program, when you look at it, is in bad shape, and yet he came here. He wanted the job. I think you got to take that into consideration.
So what will success look like for Ryan Silverfield? What gets momentum moving forward? You can't get any worse. I mean, I guess you can go 0-12, but let's be realistic about this. There's at least 1 win on the schedule every year. It's just a matter of you got to win some games and everything. I mean, you've got to start immediately because the idea of building up slowly. Look, I'm not saying you got to go 9-0 in the SEC or 6-1 or whatever it is next year, but you've got to show real momentum, not just, it's going to take a little time to get this thing going, guys. You got to actually have a decent season coming up in 2026.
He's got to get money. And he's got, Yurchek's viewed as a guy that's having trouble with the boosters. The collective is not real good right now. He's got to change that. He's got to go out and convince people, hey, and he had a reputation of getting money when he was at Memphis, going out and getting it himself. Well, he's going to have to get it here, and he's going to have to raise some money for the collective, and then we'll find out how much, because starting in January, he's got to pull people in out of the portal, and we'll see if he's got the money to get who he wants. And so that's a part of it. But the other part of it is he's got to keep the guys on this team, the one he wants here. He's got to keep a lot of people from leaving. And Hogs Plus, who's kind of an unofficial arm of the athletic department, they're allowed to do a lot of things the rest of us can't do. But they went in and videoed his meeting with the team. And one of the things he said, you got to be a football player, I think, to understand this. But he went in there and he looked at those guys and he said, if any of you are thinking about going and transferring to a team on our schedule next year, if you do, I'm warning you, we're going to beat your beep. So I read somebody responding to that. They said, well, that's a terrible thing to say to those players. Whoever wrote that didn't understand football players. They like that kind of talk. So I don't know how much it'll help, but this guy is not Sam Pittman. He's not going to come in there and just get excited about getting the jukebox going and all that stuff. He looks like an authoritative guy that is a plain talking, taught football. You know, you're not in here to just be happy. I'm in here to make you better players. And so far, what I've seen from him talking to these guys indicates that, you know, he's going to be a forceful leader over there.
What's the, I don't know if you want to do a one-word review. How do you describe the 2025 Arkansas Razorback football season? What would be the best synopsis you would have? And then what do you think next is for Bobby Petrino?
It was just awful. I mean, it was terrible because they look, those 2 years under Morris, okay, I understood that. This team was better than that. They should have been better than that. And don't blame it on the defense. The defense might have been a problem. But that offense failed consistently to come out of the halftime and do anything. I think he waited way too long with his quarterback. He had a quarterback that was a bad decision maker, and he was doing it even up to the last game. I think if Bobby Petrino really, truly wanted to win that game, he should have left K.J. Jackson in for the whole game because you saw him come in, and it took him a while to settle in. But once he settled in, he looked like he was getting in a rhythm, and then all of a sudden he's out again. And you can't do that. So I think Bobby at that point was trying to be fair. Okay, I brought this kid in. You know, I brought in my quarterback. He worked hard under me. It just didn't work out. But his parents are here, and it's senior day. Well, that's the fair Bobby Petrino. I'm being fair. The old Bobby Petrino just wanted to win the game any way he could. So again, it doesn't surprise me he didn't get the job. His offense failed to produce in that 2-month period when I think 2 wins would have gotten him the job. And he never got it, and it wasn't just on the defense.
You don't always win your first bet. That's why MyBookie has you covered. Use our code HOGS, H-O-G-S, and your first bet up to $500 is fully covered. If your pick doesn't hit, you get it right back with our Bet Back bonus. Go to mybookie.ag and use the code HOGS to claim your Bet Back bonus. MyBookie's where bettors win together because bragging's good, but cashing in is better. And your first bet is fully covered. Use our code HOGS.
Must opt in during the bet to use the Bet Back bonus.